If you're running Google Ads for your e-commerce brand and your cost per purchase is, well, just too high, don't worry, you're not alone. This is one of the most common problems e-commerce brands face in 2025. So in this video, I want to break down the exact steps I use to lower the cost per acquisition and make Google Ads actually profitable regardless of the niche or industry the e-commerce brand is in. Now, I'll be honest about one thing. It's not super difficult to get sales with Google Ads. I mean, any product out there with even a decent amount of search volume can go out and get sales when it comes to Google Ads. However, when the main goal is to get profitable, that's when problems start to arise. And it doesn't matter if you're spending $20 per day or $2,000 per day. If your cost per purchase is way too high, in that situation, Google Ads becomes a very, very difficult platform to sustain long term. Now, one thing I want you to understand that when it comes to Google Ads and cost per purchase in general is lowering the cost per purchase is all about targeting the right audience at scale. As you start targeting the right audience more and more with your campaigns, with your brand as a whole, your cost per purchase should naturally start to decrease. But if that's not happening, more likely than not, you're not following one of these things which I'm about to mention. The first thing which you must absolutely make sure that you have in place is a solid foundation. Now, I talk about foundation all the time when it comes to my videos. However, when I say foundation, I'm actually referring to the actual product feed which your entire ad accounts and your campaigns on Google work off of. With product feed, the most important things include things such as the product titles, the product images, for example, what you do in the Google Merchant Center, the back end. So if we look right here, for example, some of these brands have certain key information coming up for them in the smaller section right over here. Some of these don't even have that. But all of these things essentially determine how good your cost per acquisition is. And the first step to lowering your cost per purchase is to focus on your keywords, because keep in mind, unlike Facebook ads, unlike TikTok ads, there's no such things as interest targeting on the Google Ads side, which means your keywords that you have within titles, descriptions, the Google Merchant Center, these act as the interest targeting on this platform. So what that means is when it comes to your product titles, you want to be doing a little bit of research that goes beyond the Google Ads Keyword Planner tool to understand what's the right keyword which your brand already has enough data for and is potentially getting some sales for. If you don't have that much information when it comes to the keywords, you can just go ahead and do a quick search for your major keyword on Google. And then on the left-hand side under refined results, these are all potential things which you can be adding to your product title. These are all SEO keywords which Google holds at utmost importance, hence why they have their own little section here on the left-hand side. Once you start doing this, you start automatically aiming at lowering your cost per purchases, because these things help Google understand what category or what selection your product falls under, and it's able to then refine your audience targeting and make sure your ads go towards the right audience targeting. Same thing for what you would do in the description of this product or even the Google Merchant Center. For example, the product attributes which you can end up adding within the GMC. All of these things then should bring you to the other parts of your product feed and the foundation, things such as your product image, things such as what you do in the Google Merchant Center, any promos you have, any reviews, etc. When you are approaching these things, your main goal should be to do all of these things based around your perfect audience in mind. If you're targeting the low cost, low income level brackets, well, then you should be doing things that are captivating to the audience and basically don't make the person think twice before purchasing your product. This includes having lower product prices. This includes just having a very generic product image which caters and relates to that audience within the low income bracket. On the other hand, if your products and everything you're trying to do is catered more towards the people with higher income levels or just people who have more money to spend, but they do their research, for example, then in that situation, you would want to have more product specifications within your titles. Your pricing could be a little bit bigger. You should have reviews definitely going on in the Merchant Center. All these things should be done based on your correct audience member in mind, because this is going to bring you to the next thing, which will then further help lower the cost per acquisition or cost per purchase, which is the actual campaign campaign strategy. Now, I always say this, it doesn't matter what campaigns you launch. You could be running standard shopping campaigns, performance max, search, YouTube. That's besides the point. What you should be focused on is essentially product segregation within these campaigns based on key similarities. So what that essentially means is some of these campaigns right here, for example, they're running based on a certain similarity that caters to that product. First campaign right over here is based around the best-selling products from previous data. The second campaign right here is basically something called the catch-all campaign, which runs at a very high target return on ad spend. This third campaign right here is based on a certain sub-collection, so on and so forth. So all of these campaigns, for example, in this ad account, which does over $4 billion per month, by the way, are based on a certain category of products. It's based on a certain similarity of the products. And this is essentially what helps the algorithm consistently showcase your product catalog to a better and better quality audience. Because keep in mind, every single day you're running these campaigns are getting valuable data, which then gets submitted back to the ad accounts, which then the ad account uses to find even more people like these ones it's targeting. So that's why it's so crucial to have proper conversion tracking. That's why it's so crucial to ensure your campaigns have proper segmentation, because that's what is going to drive these products towards the right users. But that's not all. When it comes to the campaign strategy, you need to have a very good idea of what your bids should be ideally. Now, most brands, what I see when I'm auditing brands under my agency, Your Marketing, which, by the way, if you run a brand doing over $50,000 per month in revenue, you need some extra help scaling your brand to the next level with Google, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a completely free call with me, and let's see how we can potentially work together and make that happen. But what I see more often than not with these brands is they don't really know their bids. They're guessing random numbers. They're doing all these manual bidding strategies with bids that are guesses. And this is a very bad situation to be in, because Google Ads is not a guess-based platform. It's a data-based platform. And whatever bids you use, they should be based around real numbers. Now, if you're just starting out with Google, if you have no previous data, then obviously you will have to go with the manual bidding approach. However, once you have some data, once you have some insights, the best approach is to go the smart bidding based route. That's why this brand right here has all these campaigns based on a smart bidding strategy, except one, which we just recently launched. It's not even spending money at this point. We're basically A/B testing a smart bidding based strategy versus this enhanced CPC manual bidding strategy. But essentially, the more smart bidding you can have, the better your performance will be. And this will also help with the cost per acquisition, because nobody knows your perfect customer better than the Google Ads algorithm itself. And over time, as you start spending more money, as it starts getting more refined, the results will just continue to get better and better, which is why you want to rely more on smart bidding, and then you will get a general idea of what your generic bids should be. But entirely, your campaign strategy should be based around smart bidding with proper product segmentation. Essentially, product segmentation with similarities is what helps smart bidding campaigns go out into the world, bid the right amounts, and then eventually scale. But along with this, you need to be focusing on improving your KPIs, which is the next way to lower your cost per acquisition and purchases. Basically, improving the main KPIs such as average order value, such as the click-through rates. These are some of the most important KPIs when it comes to Google Ads, because these determine how much you can scale further. For instance, by simply improving your average order value, what you can now do is you can now spend more money to acquire a customer. But since you're spending more money, initially you will see that your overall cost per acquisition might even actually start to go up. But over time, because you're spending much more money now, you're getting data at a faster rate because you're spending more money. Over time, this cost per acquisition number quickly starts to go down, and that's when you really start to see a massive change in terms of the cost per acquisition. It starts to go lower and lower and lower over a certain time period. So this is the beauty about improving the average order value. Not only do you get higher revenue on the back end, but in addition, over time, your cost per acquisition actually goes down much faster than it would previously with the lower AOV ranges, which is why you want to focus on the AOV. But along with that, you want to be focusing on the click-through rates, because CTR essentially is the main metric which determines how much your product is getting in terms of traffic. If you're getting 1% CTR on 100 impressions, well, that's 1% click-through rate, which means one person out of that 100 now went onto your website to interact with your ad, so on and so forth. But if you were to increase that CTR by probably purchase if they're high buying intent, if you have been focused on a good foundation, if you already have a good campaign strategy in place. And having a higher CTR naturally is going to help your brand get more revenue as a result. So that is why CTR is one of the biggest things you can focus on. The best ways to improve CTRs include focusing on the product images, improving the product titles, so on and so forth. What the user sees on the front end Google Ads view is what you should focus on for the CTR side. But this now brings me to the main and kind of final thing which you can do to really improve your overall cost per purchase and bring that down, which is retargeting. Now, most brands actually sleep on retargeting because they just have simple campaigns running, maybe a simple standard shopping campaign, maybe a performance max campaign, or even a search campaign going after retargeting audiences. But the main thing you must do at any given time when it comes to retargeting is you should have a standalone campaign strategy that caters to 20% of your budget just for retargeting or branded search. And what this means is you might have a standalone standard shopping campaign or a PMAX campaign or even search, which is just responsible for retargeting, no cold traffic acquisition. And when you separate out retargeting from cold traffic, what happens is on the account level, number one, the retargeting campaigns will bring down the cost per acquisition. But because now you're getting a good amount of sales coming through these standalone retargeting campaigns, which get stored on the accounts level, the cold traffic campaigns will now use this data to become smarter. They will use this data to find more people similar to this, so which is exactly what you want to happen. So at any given time, you need to be spending at least 20% of your budget on retargeting or branded search campaigns. But just to kind of recap everything, just using the right bidding strategy, targeting high intent keywords, and then bringing that on with properly optimized landing pages with properly segmented campaigns, that's when your brand really starts to lower the cost per acquisition and it starts to scale on a long-term basis. But again, if you run a brand doing $50,000 or more per month in revenue, you need some extra help scaling to the next level with Google Ads, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a completely free call with me, and let's see how we can potentially work together and make that happen.